So, my first thoughts watching this as it went on is any sane studio would have used this temporary lull in the action and drama to lower their animation. But I realized Madhouse must be getting an insane amount of revenue from this because I've heard it's one of the top 10 rated anime in Japan. So maybe that's what's fueling their ridiculous budget. Anyway, I was thoroughly impressed through and through by this episode that really was just supposed to serve as a breather, but ended up being hugely entertaining in its own right. Alright, starting from the beginning, we find out the purpose of the split in half wood is for authentication mostly. We notice that the "you wanna fight or not" notice has been erased when a long-haired super freaky lady appears behind Gon and Killua. Surely from just her purple lips that are shown and her jet black hair she's a beauty, right? Well, if you think so, I won't judge you. I wouldn't touch her in the sense that she's probably like that girl from "It's Not My Fault I'm Not Popular." But some people like them some Palm, and that is okay with me. I'm all for alternative beauty. In case you're wondering, sometimes I do not draw the distinction between fantasy and reality, and I don't give a fuck, really. I like to get absorbed in the shows I watch completely. Anyway, so Palm appears, and she's another instantly good character. She's pretty unexpected though, so she's par for the course for the Chimera Ant arc, which is just filled to the seams with surprises. We find out she's an assistant of Nov's over some tea. Personally, I would only go with that chick to get some tea in a public place, so if she invited me back to her place, I'd have to decline. So I'm glad that's what happened with our two buddies. You can already see this girl is unwired with the amount of sugar she's putting in her cup and stumbling over her words. Togashi often slips in true-to-life things in his works, and an example of that is saying that love requires respect of the other person. I pretty much fully agree. And if you're into it, Madhouse also gives you some fan service with Palm having coffee dripping off of her lips. And guess what, bitches? I totally am into it and I embrace it. Man, it feels like forever since we've heard this goofy music. It's funny how even the cool-headed Killua can't break through this girl's tirades without yelling. It's interesting that Gon dislikes her being an enhancer, and that's possibly because of how Hisoka described enhancers back in Heaven's Arena, which Palm seemingly goes against. Someone tell me if I'm wrong about that. This series has a lot of subtle details with multiple interpretations. Gon and Killua are told by Palm that they're in the competition by two people chosen by Netero, and only one group will be allowed in with a deadline of 1 month. Next, we get a really high-quality bar scene showing their nin capacity is nothing to scoff at, and Knuckles' eyes are bulging, saying he'll kill 2 kids. Man, people are totally cool with killing kids in this series. How does he try to find our two protagonists? He shouts through the street with a megaphone, of course. What else would he do? Especially with that pompadour, I think the only way you can talk with one of those is with a megaphone, because otherwise, when you talk to people, they would totally ignore you to look at that pomp. I laughed pretty hard at the people wondering where the fight would be. We get a restaurant scene, and those always make me hungry because the food in anime always looks so damn tasty. Anime is downright food porn a lot of the time. What's interesting here is even though Killua was given some pretty sound advice, he disregards it in favor of the way he was brought up as an assassin. That's logical, but it's still cool because normally when someone is given advice by a mentor figure in a series or an experienced person, they internalize it completely. Just another nuance that makes this series so special. He says if you can only beat someone 1 or 2 out of 100 times, forget it. We all know Gon wouldn't let that slide though, so we see his eyebrow raised a little bit. Gon, like an interesting main character, doesn't totally go along with the decision, even though some people like to make the mistake of thinking he's a total idiot. He objects to the idea of knowing their abilities ahead of time, which honestly makes a lot of sense considering the scenario they're in. These guys don't have Wikipedias to figure out boss abilities, so they have to be able to calibrate in the battle. Another slightly subtle thing. If you'll notice in this episode, Gon's eyebrows have become a lot sharper. This is much closer to how they look in the manga. The straight eyebrows fit the serious tone of the forthcoming events. I was wondering when they would make the switch to the more serious expression. Our old friend Biscuit comes back with a punch and calling someone an idiot. Isn't that how the best reunions are supposed to work? Her new outfit is frickin' snazzy, I love it. Gon's fantasy of 1 week is quickly crushed as Biscuit convinces him. We get a short scene of Neferpitou, which is always a treasure, and she seems to want to be able to fight the frozen kite again. Her voice acting is excellent as usual, very unusual and pronunciated. They start their training and Biscuit's evil laugh here made me giggle. We also get some music that I believe we haven't heard since Greed Island at least. We get a scene of Knuckle in a park shouting to himself, and he already gets another dimension added to his character with the soft spot he has for animals. Okay, so Biscuit uses her power here, and you could almost swear this is a Sailor Moon transformation sequence, and I think that's what they were paying a tribute to since Togashi is married to Sailor Moon's author. Biscuit has her servant named Cookie. I love the names in this show. There's like Biscuit, Cookie, Stick Dinner is a name, I think. I think there's even someone called Banana in Kite's crew. Palm throws her psychotic talking off to Biscuit, and Biscuit is just like, is that even a threat, you scraggly-haired bitch? Biscuit's just so totally unfazed in this part. Now, I could see how this part isn't hilarious within the story, but I find it hilarious that Togashi would immediately have one of the strongest nin users we know, the chairman of the Hunter Association, say he's weaker than just one of the royal guards, Neferpitou. If that doesn't dash your hopes, just what will? This scene's really good, by the way, with the wind making all of their clothes and their hair flow while they make really interesting cocky comments. Dang, the radius of that inn is just horrifying. It makes the Chimera Ant Fortress look like an impenetrable evil castle. Nav shows off a power of his, talking of his extermination methods, and his power is, from what we've seen, is to get things out of a pocket dimension. It reveals a gigantic pipe that Moral smokes like a boss and creates some smoke rabbits, the best kind of rabbits. The rabbits approach Neferpitou and the newly revealed Shia Poof. Both him and Neferpitou have very good designs, I've got to admit. Okay, holy shit, this part's creepy. Neferpitou wants an ability so badly to fight Kite again that it manifests itself right there as she laughs playfully. This is a creepy arc, man. Even Palm, who's supposed to be part comic relief for now, could be considered a creepy character by most standards. But she does have legitimately cute moments, like when she blushes from the determination Gon is showing. Biscuit's reading her yaoi magazines, while we hear our dreaded end-of-episode music letting us know that our euphoria is nearly over. I hate doing summaries, really, because they're fairly cliché and say what I've already said in a more boring way, so from now on I'm just going to skip straight to the rating. This episode gets an A++, actually, for being unexpectedly hugely entertaining when Madhouse could have easily used this episode for a relaxation session for their animation team. Thanks as always for watching my review, guys. See you again.